Welcome back to the Within Podcast. This is your host, Nikki Wallace, with co-host Allie Sartain.
We're back.
I know the summer is going so fast, and
Way too fast.
I know it's been a good summer, but we're hoping everybody else has a good summer. We have kind of a fun topic to elaborate on, I think, today. So last week we talked a lot about the unconscious consumer. We got a lot of good feedback from that. And I think a lot of people are starting to wake up and are starting to realize their surroundings, what's going on, what they're not doing, what they are doing, what's impacting them. So today we really wanted to elaborate a little bit further on really the idea that everyone's optimizing, doing all these things, but yet a lot of people are really still struggling or what could be their best. So what does that look like? What are tips or tricks we've used along the way? What have we seen? What have we noticed? I think the biggest thing to remember in all of this is that wellness is a journey. And I feel like that's been probably one of the biggest obstacles that people come across is, oh, I'm taking these supplements and I don't feel better. And it's like, well, when did you start them? 2 weeks ago. Well, it takes your time, body time. Even with some of these things that people I think are maybe fads, in reality, a lot of them work. You have to find what works for you, but it also takes time in the journey. So, but let's get into it. The idea everyone's optimizing, but no one really feels better. So what does that mean? What does this mean to you? What does it mean to us?
I know we both have had our own experiences, but I've had 20 years of experience and thousands of conversations with women. We're in a time where we have so much technology. We have amazing things that are here to improve our health. We have ingredients and access to supplements and peptides and all of these things. But like you said, people still feel like shit at the end of the day. And so it's time to take a step back and look a little bit deeper at what is going on and why don't we feel better? Because we do have so much at our fingertips that I feel like everyone should feel amazing and be living their best life.
We have all these things like consumables that we can actually pick up and consume or buy, but then we also just have like the data, which I know we talked about this on the last podcast, but social media and marketing has become so super specific to the consumer. You scroll the internet and there's data going back to some of these big companies on how we consume, why we consume. And I just are taking a class right now around marketing and how specific it can get. It's like these companies are literally targeting you, us, whoever, whatever that is. I feel like just the other night too, we were talking about something and Allie's like, oh God, our phones hurt us because now I'm getting all these ads. We're such a data-driven consuming society that, just taking time to be self-aware.
At the end of the day, it's not just the long hair, the thick hair, or the skinny body that you're after. It's what you're going to get that feeling when you get to that point. They know how to market to that. And so that's why we did bring up last episode, unconscious consuming and really understanding what's going on with your body. And some people like to guess, or they can resonate, oh, I have that symptom, or I feel that way, I must need that. But I think that, if you're optimizing and you're doing all the right things, but you still don't feel right, that's again why the conversation today is so important about, we talked about the core basics. Some people don't even do that. What are you doing to take care of yourself?
Yeah. When we think of, Allie and I were both kind of talking through our journeys and, what does this topic mean personally to us? Because obviously it's easier to talk through some of our own experiences. But I think some influencers are starting to hone in on this, which has been awesome to see. Just exactly what Allie said. We're looking at an ad. It's telling us we're feeling this and then that we need this. But I think that the bridge to why we're still feeling that emptiness or that ache, we're going to step 10 and like we haven't even looked at step 0. And what do I mean by that? So there's so many things that your body from a foundational level needs to survive. We are made of water, of cells, of bodies are so amazing. And I've learned so many things about bodies. I know you have too over the last 5 years, but we're forgetting those little things that whatever, drinking water is not a big deal. No, like that's your body is made up of majority of water. Like that is a very big deal for you to be able to hydrate your cells and do all those things. So I think let's start there and kind of talk about that gap of we're as a society, we're buying that thing that is going to optimize. Like I'm wearing my Aura ring right now, but yet I think we're forgetting that first step of like the foundational things that have to happen with the body.
I got to the point where I saw so many people spending thousands of dollars on, PRP and topicals. And I'm like, what is going on? We're doing all the right things, but you listen to them and ask what their day to day is. They're, put themselves at the last of their to-do list. They're running around, they're not sleeping, they're squeezing in food when they can. We talked about peptides earlier and stuff like that. And you can have all these amazing things, but like your body needs water, it needs food, think of it as fuel. You need sleep, you need all of these things. Otherwise, your body's not going to even know what to do or have the capability to benefit from the peptide or the supplement or anything like that. So,
right away, you might see something with the peptides is like a big one right now, I feel. But foundationally, if you're not giving your body the nutrients and the sleep and all of those things, like long term, your body is still going to function in the same way. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. Like the gap is right there. That like, what are we doing foundationally? So from your experience, I guess in your journey, what do you think are some things that you've done to optimize yourself? Allie and I, we're still on a journey with this.
Always.
I mean, I started this podcast complaining about how rough my pregnancy has been. I know pregnancy is different, but life changes every day. Your body changes every day. Your hormone cycling every day as a woman. So I want to be clear that we're definitely not feel great every day. It's a journey for us. But what are some things you've done along the way?
Well, to add to that too, first, I always thought in my life, it was like a Mario game, right? That you're going to get through all the levels and then you're going to be this fit, healthy, happy person. And that's just not the case because our environment's always changing. What our experiences are always changing. And so that's again why we're so passionate and want to talk about the tools that you can implement on a regular basis because life is stressful and the point isn't to avoid the stress because it's not possible. The goal is to set a good foundation so when you have a little earthquake or rumble in the house that you don't just fall apart and you can, or if you do fall apart, you have the knowledge and the foundational or habits to rebuild that. In the midst of building a salon, was doing all of this stuff, and so I'm like, okay, like we're gonna keep up with all of our wellness things. And I was working out at 4:30 a.m. my alarm clock would go off, so in my mind I'm like, I'm crushing it. I'm working out.
I remember when you did this. I thought you were insane.
I was insane. I thought I was working out, I was eating right, I was taking the supplements and doing all this stuff, but that's not sustainable long term. And what happened was essentially, for lack of a better way to put it, a shitstorm years later when my body just got completely ran down because I wasn't prioritizing my sleep. I was working out, but for women especially, and I would love to talk about this topic at some point, but our cortisol and doing HIIT workouts every day is not good for our body and can actually cause your body to go into a fight or flight and hold on to fat. And so, I was the epitome of doing everything right. And I would even have clients in my chair say, how do you do it all? And, you're doing all this stuff and you still take care of yourself. And little did I even really recognize at the time that I was not feeling good. And my body was definitely starting to break down and show it.
I think you get in such you're trying to balance all the things. And I know a lot of you can relate. Like you just at some point you just do it. Like you just have to, and
you go in go mode,
which I think is how we get to where we are now. Of how do we quit? How do we stop that cycle? And now we're both very aware. I think we still do it sometimes, but how do you stop that cycle or help others recognize and stop that cycle so you're not continuing to put your body through all these things? Because when you were getting up at 4:30 in the morning, you were in reality only getting probably 5 or 6 hours of sleep.
Probably 5 hours,
and that just isn't enough for your body to have the sleep that it needs to be able to regenerate and detox and do all the things that your body does during sleep. So it's crazy.
Yeah. And there's something, I wish I knew the timelines of this exactly. And this does sound very woo woo, but your organs repair themselves. Like sleep is when your body does its repair work, and your, different times of the night correspond to different parts of the body and when they're repairing and healing. And it's important and it's crucial that your body gets that downtime of taking care of itself, and sleep is so important in optimizing that for sure.
I wish I could sleep more right now, but
body's preparing you for long nights with babies or baby.
Both the girls in my bed last night, and I'm just like, good God, can I just get one night of sleep? Oh well.
Nope. Taking that times 3 now.
I know, it's crazy. In my own journey, some of those foundational things like feet in the grass, and we can kind of go through some of the things that we've implemented or that we've done.
The things that are very unsexy that nobody talks about. Everybody wants to optimize with an Oura ring or a Whoop. Is it a watch? A Whoop ring?
I don't know. I keep seeing that. I don't actually know what that is.
I do. It's been in my head, so that's why I
probably should look it up.
But, everybody wants this like amazing, thing that is going to change their life, but we really overlook. I think the thing too is they're so simple and they're free, and you can literally do them anywhere. And you can do it by yourself. You don't have to have like gym equipment. You don't have to have, a doctor prescribing it or anything like that. Like it almost feels like a cheat code to me. When I learned how to do breath work and some of this, like I thought it was super crazy too, but they use breath work, for Navy SEALs. They use it, I see a lot of clips and it shows athletes before a big event. And, there's breath work and there's mental training that has gone into that to let them perform in the way that they do. And so I wish I knew this statistic, but it sounds, anyone who's rode Peloton will understand this, but I love because I learned so much from some of the educators, and they talk about how we've been told, you breathe with like your chest, but really what I've learned is breathing with your diaphragm is the proper way to do it. Your heart.
This is not where I thought you'd go, but okay.
But what they're doing is they're expanding those walls to try to get everything kind of going again. And so when you're breathing with your chest, it's so shallow. And so it's breathing with, your diaphragm that really creates that space around every, your organs there, and really allows for oxygen to get really flowing. Breath work I use in the morning to, there's simple ones you could do. I'll demonstrate those later, but it's like a few minutes and it will literally wake you up more than a cup of coffee. So learning the tool of like your breath and how you can manipulate it or use it as a resource when you're in a state of stress or when you're trying to focus. Our mom had a really bad accident years ago, and I was in a room with her when they essentially came in and, we're getting ready to transport her to another hospital. And she just looked at me and was so scared. And I'm like, you just have to breathe. And I had taught her box breathing. And to this day, she says that that's something that allowed her to get through all of that, because she had so many scans and so many, procedures, a way for her to tap in and start to kind of control her own body and emotions. And
some people might remember this term from your grade school and some people not, but it's really your Maslow hierarchy of needs. So when Allie and I were kind of talking about like, this is what we know, but how do we kind of frame it so people understand and they don't just think we're total wackadoodles. Sometimes we are, but if you literally go back to, and I learned this in grade school, I don't remember when, but we kind of forget about it along the way. But when you really think about what your foundational needs are as a human being, the body needs, the physiological needs are foundational. So what are those things? Breath, light, so sunlight, nature, sleep, like some of the very basic things. So when we go back to this idea that everybody's optimizing, buying all the things, we are literally missing those simple things. Like what I would challenge people is like, before you buy the next thing or get hooked into the next, like I just bought freaking castor oil and it ended up coming from overseas somewhere. And I'm like, this is not what I wanted. Like I just wanted the jar, if I'm being honest. But before you get sucked into some of these ads and all these things, like, have I even taken time today to, go out in the sun? Or have I even taken time today to step on the grass? Have I taken time today to maybe breathe for even 2 minutes? At the Potential Within Summit, we talked about these things a lot. Like, what are the things that you can do and integrate throughout your day to just regulate yourself as a human being? before it gets all these extra things added on
Yeah.
that are going to then tell you that you're stressed out, but then you don't know what the hell to do about it.
Yeah.
So how can you implement some of these basic things? Nutrition.
Yeah. And I give people props who are in office or are behind a desk and sitting for a majority of the day, because that's been new to me. I've spent 20 years standing on my feet and moving around constantly all day, but
That's my world.
yeah, and I can see how that can really have an impact on, your mental health, but also your physical health. And so a few things that I've tried to really be conscious about is getting up and taking a break every so often. Like, I'll go and step outside and get like 5 minutes of sunlight and do some qigong or something to just get my body.
That's a new one.
No, I like qigong. I think it's qi, like QI. Chi is like your energy in your body.
Well, yeah, but
you had a gong.
You still got me on Tai Chi. I'm still trying to keep up with you. Allie is way further ahead in this journey than I am.
Yeah, but only because we've, it takes, I feel like, sometimes getting into the shit for, to really like kind of just throw your hands up in the air and be like, all right, well, I'll try the breath work, but, just getting those little tools of optimization so that you can, feed into your body throughout a day, because we are throwing so many things at our bodies that, we talk about that so much with epigenetics. Like, there's a reason why it pulls up, your exposure to technology, sensitivity to chemicals and the ingredients you're using and different things like that, because our body wasn't built and made to process this. And so
it literally doesn't know how to like process those things.
Yeah. So just having like the little tools to, kind of implement. And there's that course that we're with Emily, she's a neuroscientist, and she talks about foods and combining certain foods to give your body like a feeling or to get more focus, fueling your body. And I think that's the key word right there too, is not looking at food as just food. But I, even when we talk about water, I always do talk to Dad. Our dad's a mechanic, and I'd be like, Dad, you have
I don't think he knows what water is.
Yeah, no, he actually got in trouble because he put Crystal Light packets in his Culligan and it fermented. And so
about that.
But he never would drink water. And I said to him, it tried to relate to him. I'm like, you have to think about your body like a vehicle, and every time you yelled at me for not having oil in my car, like, it needs it to function, it needs it for your organs. And he argued that he was fuel injected and it didn't matter for him. But for those who are not fuel injected, it's how your body runs and how it functions. And so really looking at it from a fueling standpoint and not just eating.
So to round this out, let's kind of go back to where, I guess, the starting of, or like kind of what those foundational things are. So there's really 5 of them that we both agree probably have been biggest game changers for us. Sunlight or nature. I would put those 2 together. Movement, breath, sleep, and then nutrition. Nutrition for me has definitely been probably a number 1. We've tried a lot of things over the years, but hopefully this will give you all some nuggets of things you can try to implement kind of throughout your day. But sunlight.
I mean, I just think like the best thing you can do, we're around so much technology now that they talk about how that really unbalances your circadian rhythm, which is responsible for, helping you, kind of wake up every day and go to sleep at night. And it really gets disrupted in ways that we don't even realize. So I think the best thing you can do to really start training and getting that is morning sunlight. The best excuse I have is to take my dogs out in the morning and put my feet in the grass, and to really just first thing, help my eyes wake up. You don't have to stare obviously directly at the sun, but without contact lenses, without glasses on, just go and take in the sunlight and be outside is one of the easiest and most powerful things that you can do. It also helps with hormones, with vitamin D. I mean, there are so many impactful things. And days I don't do it, I can definitely feel a difference.
So you feel even on like cloudy days, it's just good to like get outside?
We moved from Arizona where we had constant sunshine. So I will say, like, living in the Midwest in the winter, I did outsource with a red light, and days where we couldn't be, in the sun the way that we wanted to, I would sit and I would have Max, sit in red light. And it's waking up that mitochondria and like healing and kind of taking that stuff in on a cellular level, which is really important, because again, you can take all the things, but if your mitochondria are slow and sluggish or things are turned off inside of your body, It's not going to matter what you take if you're not, like we said, doing the foundational steps.
And for me, sunlight is probably, I'm not as good at this. Is probably one of my weak spots where you're definitely better at sunlight. But when Allie started talking about this with me, I just, every morning when I put my dog out, I like stick my head out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, even 30 seconds or a minute, it's going to be better than nothing. One of my girlfriends, actually, she said that as she started studying this, she actually doesn't even put her sunglasses on for like the first half of the day, because like the benefit of that vitamin D getting into your actual like eyeballs, which I know sounds very weird, but that's kind of where some of it is absorbed, I guess. But I always thought that was an interesting tip. So when I can, I try not to like wear my sunglasses just when it's appropriate, so I can kind of have that exposure that I'm needed, because I'm probably not outside quite as much.
Well, and when I was in the thick of my kind of healing journey, someone told to me, how much are you actually outside? And I was like, when I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm outside to run Max to drop off, and then I'm in at the salon. And so I jam-packed my day. Nothing was a priority except for getting through a work day. And, I became really intentional about when someone's processing, or when I had 20 minutes, grab my lunch and go sit outside. And it was insane how that small of a shift really made a big difference. So strive for something small, and your goals. I think the issue is we always set these high goals. I'm notorious for this. And then we get defeated so quick, and then we just kind of throw in the towel and give up immediately.
Yeah. Sunlight, I think, is one that's definitely like, you don't, until you start tracking it and being intentional about it, you don't realize how little outside time, especially if you're in the corporate world, that we get. So I think that's probably like a real easy one that you could implement. I mean, even 5-10 minutes of your day here or there. So, all right, movement is a big one. So we all have feet, so you have the ability to be outside, you have the ability to move. If it's not nice out, there's so much inside stuff that you can do. YouTube has actually become, I didn't even realize YouTube has become like a new thing in our house, because the girls discovered YouTube.
It's how they don't watch TV, they watch YouTube.
But I've even had coaches over the years. There's so many great meditations on YouTube. There's so many great yoga classes. Even if it's like a free version, if you don't have the funds or the ability to be able to pay for a gym or pay for something kind of tool wise, there's so many free things. Just walking, even the 10,000 steps, I think, was like a big deal several years ago, and I think we've kind of lost sight of that. But part of the movement is your body's time to move the lymph that detoxes your body. Lymph movement and kind of learning that detox has been a big part of my journey. But the lymph is not moved. You have two systems in your body that move fluid. You have your blood, which is moved by your heart, and you have your lymph that is moved literally only through movement. So not only is it good for your heart and all these things to do the movement, like that's the only chance that your body is getting to push out kind of some of these detox, not just through sweat, but literally through moving that lymph throughout your body. We've done episodes on lymph. I could talk a lot about lymph, and it's kind of like a hidden thing, I think, in our bodies that really can impact, but movement is so important. So for me, just even trying to be conscious of walking. Olivia has been really into yoga. So even me and my big belly the other day, we were down here doing yoga, just to even do stretching, whatever you can do. I've had friends before that they're like, every day I try to, at a minimum, you even do this, stretch in the morning before I get up and get going. Again, another half hour, do 4 or 5 moves, maybe 5 minutes total, like how much of a difference it might feel.
Yeah. I heard someone say once too, they were like, if you're feeling, frustrated, go for a walk. If you're feeling emotional, go for a walk. If you're feeling stuck at life, go for a walk. Going outside and unplugging and getting your body moving, it moves energy within your body. So something I learned a long time ago that really changed the way I looked at this is anxiety and all of that is just built up energy inside of you. And so moving your body in any way, I'm talking like dancing in your kitchen, jumping up and down, going for a walk. It doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to make sense and feel good to you. And I'm a big lover of lifting weights, and I've gotten into lifting heavier and all of that, because I think that could be a whole nother episode talking about.
For sure will be a whole nother episode. Yeah.
But like your bone health and all of that, and just mentally the game, it's amazing for you. But it doesn't have to be large. And something fun that I've been doing is going and kind of incorporating all of these into one, getting the sunlight, getting movement in, and even connection. Is Max and I, in Japan, in Japanese culture, they call it forest bathing. Have you heard of this? So they talk about, and I'm going to mess up the statistic, but I encourage you to look it up. But you go into the woods and you just walk. And so there's a beautiful trail by our house, and it kind of becomes like a little adventure, but we're getting our sunlight, we're getting our steps in, we're breathing more intentionally. But like we've discovered different things along the way too. And it's amazing how happy I feel like he seems after we go for this walk. And even myself, like I feel clearer, lighter, all of it. And
what's it called?
Forest bathing.
Forest bathing.
You don't have to go like hug a tree or run around naked in the woods.
Every time I think you've told me all your tricks, you've given me 2 today.
But I mean, look at the longevity.
Qigong. Yeah.
It's like Tai Chi, but like different movements. But, you know, even if you are someone who's stuck in an office throughout the day, the statistics of, you know, after you eat a meal, instead of just going and sitting down, doing some calf raises, doing 25 air squats. I mean, it's insane. It like changes the way your body takes the food and digests the sugars and different things like that. So I think the biggest lesson too with all of this is we don't have to make it complicated. You don't need a gym membership. You just need to move your body.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Breath. So we've alluded to this. We talked about this. I think breath work to both of us has been an important part of our journey, but this is probably one of the easiest ones that you can do. I do breath work through my health journey. The mental game, which I know I talked about, became more of a thing to me than the physical symptoms, which is crazy because I was pooping my pants. But
Flip that one.
I've never had anxiety before, but then I was having these having these issues going on, and the mental game of like, I run a business, I have employees, I'm doing all the things. I was getting up on stages, speaking, and I would physically find myself like freaking out, and I'm like, I'm gonna literally have a panic attack. It's like a simple thing that nobody even knows I'm doing it. So before I go on stage, or before I would like have a meeting with somebody, that I was just so highly overstimulated that even just like taking 30 seconds or a minute of the box breathing, breathe in 4 times, breathe out for 4 seconds. And I think just being able to focus on that versus, you know, the pit in my stomach, or, you know, the feeling that something's going to happen, has been huge for me mentally, and trying to kind of like move through that, you know, such an unexpected thing from kind of all the things I was going through. But
I mean, I think it ties back to the conversation of, you know, living unconsciously. And I think breath work allows you to get in your body and to be really present, and again, kind of take control and tap into your emotions and how you're feeling at the time. So I believe in it wholeheartily and think it's a tool that they should teach kids at school, to be honest. I make Max, you know, try to learn how to self-regulate, and I think it's an invaluable tool that everybody should have.
Yeah. I know the girls have actually, like at night, they like to do a meditation. So I just like literally put on YouTube again. They like pick it. Like I go to the section and they pick their whatever emoji thing is on the screen. But I mean, it's become their way to like listen, and like I start each of them with like, okay, do 2 breaths. It's literally their way of like, okay, this is like my body relaxing. So breath work is definitely overlooked, but a super simple thing to add in.
Well, and I think really quick too, you know, something that I learned when we go back to talking about optimizing and, you know, all these tools that we have, we got a cold plunge, and one day I was like, you know, going through the motions, right? So I was getting ready, went in a cold plunge, and I didn't mentally prepare myself or warm up my body, or I like to try to kind of sink in and do breath work. And I had the most horrible experience and didn't get in a cold plunge for like over a year after that, because I wasn't in my body. I wasn't, you know, trying to self-regulate. And so when you do all of this stuff, and if you're doing it and you're still stressed out, you could almost have like adverse effects, or you're definitely not getting the benefit. And so breath work, like I said, really allows you to sink in and become very present and aware in your body.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing about breathwork, my last little like tidbit here too, just from a corporate standpoint, because I know a lot of you are coming from a corporate world, and I think this works anywhere, but you know, don't feel weird taking that breath, like literal physical breath before you answer a question, before, like, you don't always have to have those answers, and you don't always have to like just jump into something. Like, give your body a time, like, okay, just like take 3 breaths and then answer, or, whatever that, there's a whole series of things that I know can happen in boardrooms or in meetings. But, it's been cool to see over the last like year or so. I do feel like I've been in more meetings, and I don't know if just my circle is changing, but where like that simple breath before answering a tough question, don't feel bad about giving your body that second to really self-regulate. So sleep. This is a big one. My husband used to make fun of me because before we had kids, I would literally get like 10 to 11 hours of sleep at night. I just loved it. Like, I would go to bed at, 8 o'clock, 8:30 at night. And I mean, at that point, I was getting up to go to the gym in the morning. So going to bed that early made sense. But sleep is just such a underrated thing. This is your body's time to really detox, to, go through. The further I've gone in this wellness journey, like the amount of things that your body is doing, and regenerating and like healing during sleep. We talk about it with our girls too, of like, if they don't want to go to bed, it's like, hey, this is when you're going to get your energy. This is when your body, resets itself so that tomorrow you're going to have enough energy to go. Today they have water day at school, and it's like, well, I want that energy to be able to, play with the kids on the water day. But sleep is hard also when you're like in the thick of it. So I know we both have kids. A lot of you have kids, so how do you do that? A big thing that has worked in our house, my husband is a night owl, and I'm not. And there was becoming a lot of friction because, I was going to bed when the kids would go to bed, then I would wake up, the kids would wake up shortly, and I was never getting like that time to either wake up on my own or, to do all these things. So we actually, a thing for sleep for us has been on the weekends. Unfortunately, we're not doing it this summer since he's back in Des Moines for most of the summer, but comes down on the weekends. But we try to, like, Saturdays are my days to sleep in, and Sundays are his. And so I know going to bed on Friday night, I can, sleep till whenever the hell I want on Saturday, or I can get up and go run errands. I can go to the gym. That has really been a way for me to feel like if I need that extra time on the weekends to catch up on sleep. And he's great about it. Like, he makes sure that the door stays shut, and the girls know that Saturday's mommy's day. If I'm laying in bed, I don't want visitors. I don't need somebody to come in and be watching YouTube. So I think, during the week we try to stay on a schedule just so that we can try and get that sleep. But, having that has been a game changer for us in a lot of ways, but especially for me and my body, because I know that that's just my day, that I can be as active as I want. And sometimes it depends on where I'm at in my cycle, or I can, be as sedentary and lay in bed and watch a show, or, get a few extra hours of sleep. So,
yeah. I mean, in the world that I'm in with, helping people with hair loss and scalp conditions, you should protect your sleep like a precious commodity, because, and I get that there's seasons where, you aren't going to be able. I went through that when I had my kids and I was building business and doing all of that. But how good are you going to be, if you're not getting that rest? Because I've learned that, when you don't get that sleep, that your body is in that state of fight or flight. And what I have learned and seen and witnessed with thousands of women is that, when you're in that state of fight or flight, your blood vessels actually constrict and you're not getting the blood flow, which can result in, a slew of other things. In my world, it restricts and can cause hair loss or exacerbate a scalp condition. And so I always tell people, I won't really even talk about topicals if I know that you're not doing, these basics that we've talked about, because sleep is just the biggest one. And I think building rituals around your sleep is really important. They talk about whimsy life and like romanticizing things. And I've tried to do that around my sleep routine. I won't even turn on the bathroom light. I'll turn on a light in the closet and kind of shut the door. And, because we are so overstimulated and we are staring at screens and we're doing all of this stuff, make that time yours and make it special, and try to really allow your body to come down from the craziness of the day. So, I do that. I love frequency music, or like, you can play a nighttime meditation, but it helps to really almost kind of prepare yourself for sleep. And again, it doesn't have to be an hour-long event. Spending 3 minutes, and turn down lights and maybe like a candle, helping your body like prepare for that. yes, there are days when I'm like, I love to just sit and scroll in bed or fall asleep watching a movie, but it is good to pull away from some of that stimulation. And I have witnessed like nights that I protect my sleep that I feel so much better in every facet of life. And so make it fun, kind of romanticize it. Like you spend all day pouring into everybody else and doing your checklist and running around and being everything to everyone. And you deserve to feel really good in your body. And a big component, I think I would put it at probably besides the food aspect, but as like a top situation is protecting your sleep.
Yeah. So I would agree. You mentioned it, but I feel like we need to go back and talk about this. Scrolling before bedtime, getting into, everybody knows that Allie and I have gone through this whole epigenetic journey and learning the damage that scrolling does to your mentally. If you sit there and scroll before you go to bed, you are just setting yourself up for like so many failures.
Yeah.
Because your body, that the dopamine hits that you get as you scroll. We've talked about marketing being, something that is studied and changed to make sure that it, can be addictive behavior for humans. But the amount of damage that can be done kind of to your sleep through scrolling before you go to bed is huge. So please, please, please put the phones down before you go to sleep. The nights that I do find myself scrolling, like I just had a shitty day and I'm like, okay, I just want to, I'll feel it in my gut. I don't know if you've ever felt that, but
sure.
I literally like feel it in my gut. And it's like my brain telling me like, hey, Nikki, like this is not good for us. Like if we don't get off this phone, we're not going to have a good sleep. I just actually start logging it on my Oura Ring. I don't do it very often because I've done so much research around this. But if there's one thing that you can do for yourself, and especially in the sleep category, besides making sure you get it, is like put that cell phone down and make sure that you're like read a book or like read something if you want.
Journal, get on, stretch,
social media.
Yeah.
Give your body that break.
If you're not sleeping well, like everybody's had like that point where they go to sleep but they feel wired,
That's what that is.
I was just gonna say that's what that is you are constantly stimulated, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, time to close my eyes and go to bed, and your body is still like scrolling and going through everything that you just looked at. And so that's why I say like protect your peace and create rituals around sleep. Like I know sometimes it's hard, and we're both entrepreneurs, we're both moms, we get it more than anybody, but it's like you have to have boundaries with this, and at a certain time, like put your phone away, dim the lights. I follow someone who she is huge for this. They don't even turn on lights at night. They have salt lamps and red lights and
overhead lights.
Yeah, well, it again is a stimulant, and they talk about how fast they flicker and it keeps our minds active. That's why fluorescent lighting and certain things like that can be so kind of distracting and hard on our systems. So I say if there's like a big thing you take away from this, it is start a nighttime routine that will kind of pay you back tenfold, because when you start prioritizing your sleep, do it for 2 days, and I guarantee that your sleep will start to improve and your body will almost start to crave these little rituals. I know mine does on nights I don't do it, but it's a game changer.
Yeah, sleep. All right, then probably your number one thing, nutrition. So your body needs the nutrition. And I think when you think of nutrition, like God-given, like from the earth nutrition, like whole foods. I know at one point there is like a fad of, only eat on the outside of the grocery store. And like, there really is something to that. So again, going back to my personal journey, I had doctor over doctor for a year and a half tell me, you don't have cancer, you need to stay to watch what you eat. And I was getting so mad because I'm like, okay, yes, I know I'm overweight. I've always struggled with my weight, but like, why is that? And what they weren't telling me, and I don't know if they were meaning to tell me, is, feed your body with whole foods, with nutrition, kind of get into the weeds of what your body needs foundationally, because there's a big difference between giving your body, a piece of chicken and a processed, protein bar. And I'm not saying that I don't ever do that. I actually just told Allie yesterday I have a protein bar to try and get some of the protein that I need during this season of life. But what a game changer it was in our family when we really tried to strip. And we really did. I think my dad like makes fun of me sometimes for it because I try to turn everything into protein. But there's just so many good things that your body needs from whole foods, and your body knows how to process apples. They know how to process, meats and stuff that are not processed. Where some of these pre-made meals and some of these like fast things that we've gotten used to in this fast life that we're living in, they're just, your body doesn't know what to do with them. Your body doesn't know how to process them for the foundational and functional things it needs to survive. So prioritizing protein and fiber have been a big game changer for me, and just like the whole foods. So making simple swaps. Don't go clear your whole pantry and go buy all new, because you're going to freak out, because it's not always cheap. But you're like, I shop at Aldi. That's where we get a lot of our produce, and it's a lot cheaper than some of the other stores, and it's a lot fresher. But, start the simple swaps. So we did simple things, what is the whole food, like protein piece of our meal. I've always been a meal prepper, but then looking at like the ingredients that you're actually putting in those casseroles that you're pre-making, or the foods that you're making on Sunday for the week, and making sure that they're coming from a good source, and that they don't have extra stuff in that your body doesn't, again, know how to break down. So then it just sits in your gut.
Someone can tell you to eat healthy all day. They can tell you to, watch ingredients and do all of that. And it all sounds really boring, right? And it's like some people I feel like shut off before they even get started. But for me, when I started to understand the gut, and there's a gut brain connection that's super important. They're always communicating and they work together. Some people even call your gut your first brain, because it's always sending signals to your body and can really, really impact how you're feeling. It can either, stop or slow down things like anxiety. I think it's over 50%. I forget the exact number, but your serotonin is made in your gut. Yeah. So if you're having sleep issues, if you're stressed out, if you're depressed, yes, there can be a number of things going on, but look at what you're eating. I've been studying with, again, the neuroscientist, and she talks about, different foods that we can eat, and ways that we can, combine foods to really feel good and to protect what's happening in our gut. Because, things like processed foods and some of this, Western diet that we've like come to eat, fast and easy and quick, it's not always the best for us. And it can kind of fuel, everything that's going on in our mind and in our body. It does directly fuel it. And so I think that the understanding the why behind it for me has just been game changing, and understanding how important it is to, like we've said this whole time, think of like, what feeling is this gonna give me? That's been a big conversation in our house with Millie going through her alpha gal, and she can really feel it. Like when she eats something that's good for her body, she feels amazing, her energy's great. And we're humans and we all deserve a cupcake or whatever at some point, but how is that going to make you feel when you eat it? And knowing that you can have the balance of both, but just understand, kind of the process of what's going on in the body with it.
Yeah. So if you were talking to somebody that has not prioritized nutrition, what's the number one thing that you would tell them to like start as like an easy swap?
I mean, I would just start small. I started, with warm lemon water in the morning to wake up my digestive system. One thing I did and was horrible, and if there's any hairstylists or moms out there, is I would, eat in between clients, or I would shove food in my, there was no rest and digest. Mm-hmm. And I believe everything I've gone through with health stuff is because what I did to my body for years of, not prioritizing all of this and eating in a state of fight or flight, and eating in a hurry, eating what was quick and easy. So just start small. And I've tried to learn to, I hated cooking, but it, when you realize how beneficial herbs and these, whole foods are, get creative with it and play with it. Mm-hmm. There's so many fun recipes. There's not an excuse to not, find something that you like. I'm learning is so important for your energy, your body, just all of it. So start small. Don't feel like you need to be perfect, but understand like what you're eating and what it's going to do for you. But it's a big one. I mean, we're in a world, like we said, where everything's thrown at us. And the best thing that you can do is go back to these, because it's expensive to buy the supplements and buy the peptides and do all of that.
That prohibits a lot of people. They don't have the time. You can give yourself 5 or 10 minutes a day to do. I mean, a lot of these, we gave you examples of just take 30 seconds here, a minute here, 5 minutes here. You can give yourself a half hour cumulatively throughout the day. 45 minutes would be great. So you can get your steps in along with, some of the breath work and stuff like that. But, break it up throughout the day. I think that there's a lot of ways you can get it done. So.
For sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for following along on this week's episode. We hope that you can take a few things away and just make some small changes and journal and see how you feel and what works and what resonates with your body. But we appreciate you following along. We'll see you next week.
Bye.